Welcome back to Think Take. It's John and Kim Horcher of TYT Network's Nerd Alert.
Hello.
A channel where she talks about science and technology and video games and brings on nerdy guests.
John is on it sometimes.
I am occasionally on it as well. And so she is a master of all things futuristic, including technology.
I do like futurism.
You do like sci-fi. And so we're going to talk about some terms that get thrown around that I'm sure all of you, also sci-fi experts, are going to have strong opinions on.
They're already going to know.
They're already going to know, and they're going to argue with us in the comments, and that's fine. But for people who are maybe dilettantes in this area, don't have as much experience, they hear terms like robot and cyborg and android, and they might think that
They're not synonyms.
What's that? They're not synonyms. They might think that they all mean the same thing, or that they're just used randomly by different authors. So why don't we break down what those terms mean to us, and then we're going to talk about a few examples and see where we think they would be classified.
Okay.
So first, the simplest one. What is a robot?
It is an inorganic automaton, mechanical in nature.
So it's not, it wouldn't be something that is mechanical, but that it's controlled just remotely by another person.
Yeah, I think it's the most rudimentary.
It has to be, like when you say an automaton, you mean it has to be able to control itself through some sort of programming or something like that. Yeah. The definition that I put together was mechanical, usually, that should be independent mechanical creature, usually an electromechanical machine that is guided by a computer program or electronic circuitry. And the thing about robots is that they don't have to necessarily be humanoid. They could be shaped like animals, or they could just be
well, if
claws.
they are humanoid, they're a specific kind.
Perhaps, depending on how human in appearance. So let's turn to that then. What about the android? Not the phone. Programming
it's a
language.
cute little green mascot.
It's a cute little green man. Yes.
No, an android
it fights Apple.
It's a humanoid robot.
How humanoid?
Bipedal, at least seems to be modeled after a human in appearance, and I believe in what is the word?
Like it would possibly talk,
Movement.
possibly have emotions, maybe in some. Sometimes that makes a really good episode of Star Trek with Data. For me, I feel like they have to both be humanoid, modeled on humans, but also pretty close to humans. Like, I think they could possibly pass for humans.
Well, I mean, if you were to draw a robot, it could look like a box. But if you were to draw an android, it would at least have the shape of a human.
Okay, so I have an example that we're going to come back to in just a little bit to see if you think it passes that test. But the definition I put together was an android is a robot or synthetic organism designed to look and act like a human, especially one with a body having a flesh-like resemblance. So that's my addition, the flesh-like resemblance. But we'll come back to that. And then finally, cyborg, which I think is perhaps the most interesting. What to use a cyborg?
A cyborg is a person, a human, whose body is partially robotic, mechanical.
Like it has robotic or bionic parts.
And a good example of cyborg is the DC superhero named Cyborg.
that seems like that's not fair. Yeah, or Cable, I guess.
Kinda.
Or I don't know. I'm not great on the comics
Cyborg
necessarily.
Cyborg is a cyborg. So look
Cyborg
that up.
is
He's
cyborg.
part of the Justice League
That's
now,
true.
and his profile is getting raised.
Although just because certain things are called cyborgs doesn't mean that they actually are, but we'll circle back to that in just a second. My definition for cyborg is that it's short for cybernetic organism, is a being with both organic and biomechatronic body parts.
Biomechatronic.
Exactly.
I like that.
I had to look it up. It applies to an organism that has restored function or enhanced abilities due to the integration of some artificial component or technology that relies on some sort of feedback. So my first question for you with the cyborgs then is, in your definition, you said humans. But if I took a dog and replaced two of its legs with robot legs and gave it
a cyborg.
Yes. So it can't just be a life form.
The definition would be an organic life form with parts that are inorganic.
Like enhancements.
Is something that I think is going to be quite important, and there's not, I don't know of a company that's working on it seriously, is a neural lace. So going back to the AI situation, this is quite an important debate. Like if you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. And so then we could be in, benign, but even the benign situation, if you have if you have ultra intelligent AI, we would be, so far below them in intelligence that it would be like, a pet, basically.
Cat, that's what I was
Like
thinking.
a pet.
Cat,
Like a cat. It'd be
Elon
like
the
a house cat. Yeah, it would
right.
be like the house cat.
Right.
It's not the end of the world, Just
Well,
sort of pet.
I've seen the movie, it could be. Yeah.
It could be. But that honestly, that would be the benign scenario. And
So house cat is okay.
I mean, I don't love the idea of being a house cat.
Okay.
But
So
that,
what's the solution?
yeah. So I think I think it's to essentially. I think one of the solutions that seems maybe the best one, is to have an AI layer. If you think of like you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, a sort of a third layer above the cortex, that could work well and symbiotically with you. I mean, just as your cortex works symbiotically with your limbic system, your sort of a third digital layer could work symbiotically with the rest.
This is something that's surgically inserted or bred into the species, or what?
The fundamental limitation is input-output. So we already have, we're already a cyborg. It's just that, you have a digital version of yourself or partial version of yourself online in the form of your emails and your social media and all the things that you do. And you have basically superpowers in that with your computer and your phone and the applications that are there. You have more power than the President of the United States had 20 years ago. That you can answer any question, you can video conference with anyone
Right.
anywhere, you can send a message to millions of people instantly. You can just do incredible things. And but the constraint is input-output. So we're I/O bound, particularly output bound. I mean, like your output level is so low. It's like, particularly on a phone, like your two thumbs just sort of tapping away. This is ridiculously slow. Our input is much better because we have a high bandwidth visual interface to the brain. Like our eyes take in a lot of data. So there's many orders of magnitude difference between input and output. So mostly, effectively merging in a symbiotic way with digital intelligence revolves around eliminating the I/O constraint. So it'd be some sort of direct cortical interface.
And you called it a neural lace?
Neural lace, yeah.
It's totally not Google Glass, right?
No, I'm talking about
No, but
something
it's
which...
like you wear it? Or you...
No, I mean, it would be... I mean, there are a few ways to approach this, but some sort of interface directly with your cortical neurons particularly.
But doesn't that imply surgical insertion?
Not necessarily. You could go through the veins and arteries because that provides a complete roadway to all of your neurons. Your neurons are very heavy users of energy, so they need high blood flow. So you automatically, with your veins and arteries, have a road network to your neurons.
Still some kind of surgery, right?
Yes, but you could insert something, basically, into the jugular and have. It gets macabre, but
It sounds really easy and
it doesn't involve.
risk-free.
It doesn't involve, like chopping your skull off or anything like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And plus, you're not a house cat anymore.
So we'll both start here The Biomechatronics Lab at UCLA is a touchy place. But no offense is taken here, so long as your goal is pushing the world of robotics and prosthetics to be more sensational.
Well, we're really interested in the sense of touch.
That's Lab Director, Mechanical Engineer Veronica Santos.
You can build a hand that maybe looks like a human hand, has similar motions as a human hand, but you probably won't be able to control it with the dexterity of a human hand without some sense of touch.
With support from the National Science Foundation, Santos and her team are constructing a language of touch that a computer and a human can both understand. They are quantifying this with mechanical touch sensors that meet objects of varied shapes, sizes, and textures. Using an array of instrumentation, they are able to translate that interaction into data a computer can understand.
So for example, Miles, as you put your hand in there to stop it, we would be able to record the posture of the finger when it came in contact with you, as well as the general areas of the fingertip that were making contact and how much pressure there was or how much the skin was deforming as you made contact. Those are the types of raw percepts that you would give to someone, and then with training they would put it all together and say, hey, I think I'm touching something deformable or soft. Yeah, and then Randy has time to grab, and then it'll come back.
The training includes machine learning. The data is used to create a formula or algorithm that gives the computer the ability to identify common patterns between the items it has in its library of experience and something it has never felt before.
We're interested in developing this idea of artificial haptic intelligence.
Making haptic sensation useful for an arm amputee is a big challenge. Prosthetic and robotic technology has far surpassed the ability of an amputee to control a limb or understand what the device is sensing. The bottleneck is melding the technology with the biology.
I think one of the challenges is understanding how much information can you flood someone with before they can't make use of it.
Santos goes out of her way to try and understand what it's like to be an amputee, even trying her, well, hand at a body-powered prosthetic hook like the one I wear.
When I have it on, I realize how I have to rely on the other hand for every other dexterous thing, and I actually sometimes have to cheat.
As a young researcher, a professor told her not to go into upper limb prosthetics because it was a stagnant field. And that was largely true until recently, when the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan spurred research, and the worlds of robotics and prosthetics came together.
For a long time, people have been trying to build robots that emulate humans, but there's now a way that we can actually directly impact someone's quality of life by building a robot that becomes part of someone's body.
Dr. Santos says in a perfect world, an amputee wearing a prosthetic arm would barely feel the difference between it and the real thing. It's a long-range goal she hopes to help solve, though not single-handedly. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
My name is Neil Harbison, and I'm one of the founders of the Cyborg Foundation, and I'm a cyborg. To us, a cyborg is a feeling. It's feeling that you're not using technology, that you're not wearing technology. It's feeling that you are technology.
Neil Harbison was born completely colorblind, and while Neil still can't see color, a device called the iBorg allows him to hear and sense colors.
It picks up the dominant color in front of me, and then it transposes this frequency of light into the frequency of sound, so it's related to the frequency of light. It's not an arbitrary relation. This light frequency has a specific note, which is the note that I hear, but a few octaves lower so that it's in the audible range.
Neil has been able to hear color through bone conduction since 2004, when he convinced a doctor to anonymously perform a drastic surgery.
My head was drilled 4 times so that I could have the antenna integrated. So it goes inside my skull. So I actually feel cyborg. I feel that even if I touch the antenna, I feel it's like a part of my body. It really feels like a new body part. There's no way of removing it. So it's just like other animals, they have antennas. I decided that I would have an antenna as well.
Neil says the iBorg has expanded his senses beyond normal human capability.
I decided to include infrared colors and ultraviolets, which are invisible to the human eye, but that they can be perceived through our third eyes. And then once this became normal, I didn't see why I should only perceive the colors that I have in front of me. So I decided to have Bluetooth so I could receive colors from other places of the planet.
Neil isn't the only cyborg on this planet. Professor Kevin Warwick implanted a chip in his arm in 1998.
A radio frequency identification device.
Entrepreneur Emil Grafstra, with RFID chips in each of his hands, can unlock his car or computer with a single wave. His company Dangerous Things sells do-it-yourself body hacking kits. Some gamers are in on the action too, using brain stimulators to gain superhuman focus. Bionics researcher Michael McAlpine sees this type of technology advancing into the mainstream.
You know, up till now, I think most people have thought of bionics as people who have impaired capabilities like lost sight, giving them the ability to repair those capabilities. But going forward, I think there is the possibility if you can do that, then you can also take that to the next step and actually give normal human advanced capabilities that biology never gave them, and perhaps let them do what maybe only certain animals can do, or maybe let them do what no one can do.
Neil Harbison's experience shows how quickly technology is transforming culture.
Social reaction has changed over the years. So in 2004, people thought it was a light. Later, people started to think it was a microphone. 2006, I think they thought it was for chatting. Then 2009, people started to think it was a hands-free phone. So they thought it was a new telephone. Now people think it's something to do with Google Glass. So it's changed over the years. Now people think that I'm actually filming them, which is creates uncomfortable situations. So I'm thinking of changing the image, and I might just move the sensor down so that it creates less confrontation with people that might think that I'm actually filming them. But I'm sure that in 2-3 years, people will think it's something else. It keeps changing.
Although some people still don't know how to react to the antenna, times are changing.
I think we are now entering the age of transition into cyber, so we'll see more wearable technology becoming accepted and normalized. Once wearing technology becomes something normal, we'll start seeing the transition into implanting the technology. People will start accepting this more. So in the 20s, the late 20s, we'll see more and more projects with new body parts and new senses. And I believe that in the 40s, it will be normal to have technology implanted. So it will be normal to merge humans and technology and to unite cybernetics and organisms. I'm sure it will be normal to meet someone and ask, what are your extra senses and what's your new body part?
This is all about is the price of not knowing. The price of not knowing. And as I hope to convince you, many of the answers to the things we need to know are in the data, but once again, our systems just cannot find answers to those questions. So let's talk a little bit quickly about the amount of data and how unstructured it is and how literally every industry and every human being is being swamped by this information. We see it in every industry. In oil and gas, the amount of data that's being generated through IoT, Internet of Things sensors on these platforms is off the charts. Oil companies we work with tell us we have all of this data stored. We don't know what to do with it. We can't analyze those signals to know what's going on these big multi-billion-dollar platforms out in the ocean. Consumers, we are generating tremendous amounts of information in social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Mining that information is very difficult. It's in natural language or in things that don't even look like natural language in many cases. Understanding that, making sense of that is critical. If you're an individual, you want to understand what's going on. Can I get insights of what's going on in social media? If you're a retailer, you want to know what's going on there, because if you do not understand buying patterns, your supply chain, your inventories will be all out of balance at critical points in the year, and we see this all the time. In fact, this morning, we announced a new application on the iPhone, which is Watson Trends. We called it Inside IBM Secret Santa. It monitors social media and looks not only at what's currently being bought for the Christmas season, but what are people talking about that they may buy in the future. Trends that are happening in people's thought processes, and that's allowing individuals to buy ahead in a sense, but it's allowing retailers to anticipate what they need on the shelves during the heavy Thanksgiving to Christmas season. Appliances, again, Internet of Things, huge amounts of information being generated. Today, little, if anything, being done with that information. Healthcare. As President Jackson mentioned, in April, we opened a new business around healthcare because this is a exploding industry. It's an $8 trillion industry worldwide. Half of that $8 trillion is in the United States, by the way, and spend. And guess what? About a third of that is waste. A third of that $4 billion in the US is waste, not to mention the implications of bad diagnosis or errors in diagnosis. But the amount of information that's being generated on each one of us now throughout our lifetimes is off the charts, highly unstructured information. And in the area of security, the amount of information in cities like New York, London, Paris that are being generated from surveillance cameras, again, incredible amounts of information, some very minor amount of real-time analysis of that data, but by and large, most of that data goes into deep storage and doesn't get pulled out until there's an incident. Think about the cost of not knowing in Paris, the cost of not knowing in Paris. In the area of energy and utility, again, we've done a great job in places like the United States and portions of Europe instrumenting our homes with meters, smart meters. But again, that data lies dark, lies dormant. In fact, it's estimated that between 80 and 90% of the world's data lies dark. We don't use it, our machines don't understand it. Think about the opportunity in that 80 to 90% of the world's data. And then in the area of security, now billions of dollars are being stolen, whether it's intellectual property, personal records, bank accounts, health records. The cost of not knowing who's doing this and the cost of not stopping this is escalating again exponentially. Transportation, telematics, self-driving cars, once again, both an opportunity for those that can leverage this amount of data, but also, again, if it's not used properly, the safety threats that accompany not being able to deal with this massive amount of unstructured data. So I hope I've convinced you that literally every industry in the world now is being swamped by data. 80 to 90% of that data isn't being used, is lost within milliseconds of when it's collected, or is put in deep storage and never taken out and analyzed. And the cost, again, of not leveraging that information is off the charts. So this system that, again, we demonstrated a first generation, really prototype system back in February 2011, was the beginning of what I think of as this cognitive era of computing. It is not a system that we reprogram. It is a system that we feed better data. It is not a system that only knows what we tell it. It's a system that learns over time based on a feedback loop of decisions it's made and outcomes that it's seen. And we saw the very early stages of that. Now, at this point in time, in 2011, the system was great at natural language, which is a big chunk of the unstructured data that the world is generating. But beyond that, imaging data. The system was essentially blind at that time. It had no ability to take signal processing from the Internet of Things. These are now all capabilities that we've given the Watson system. So that's about the machine, but I think we need to talk a minute about what is going on between the human and the system here. Well, we know that we humans are excellent at some things. We have certain attributes in the way we learn, the way we look at the world, our own cognition, our own reasoning. When we look at what machines are capable of doing, it's also a very interesting set of capabilities, often used obviously for their mathematical precision, but that's no longer what these machines will be important for. And in fact, I would argue that it's this combination of human and machine which is the magic. It is the magic. In fact, there's been many studies that have shown that human plus machine will always beat a human or a machine at almost every task. And we have seen this, we saw it early on with Watson. When Watson would hit a roadblock in its learning and a human entered the picture and taught it something, Watson would make a giant leap forward in its capability to understand. And we see the same thing in fields where we're now applying Watson, where humans will hit a roadblock in their reasoning, Watson is introduced, and then there's a giant leap forward in the human's understanding. So something special is happening at this interface, this impedance match between humans and systems, and that, I think, is where the magic begins here at the CISL Center and what we're going to try to achieve. Human plus system interacting in totally different ways. What is a cognitive system? I would argue sort of at its simplest form, it's a system that learns at scale, reasons with purpose, has an objective, some defined objective, and interacts with humans in a natural way. Now that's easy to say, tough to do, but I think that's what the goal is here. Scale, reasoning with purpose, and then interacting in a very natural way, which speeds up this human plus machine process. So what is possible then? What can we rethink as humans in our lives and in our businesses? A few examples, and I'll start with a very simple example. Rethinking call centers. How many people are happy with the responses they get when they go into a call center? None. What if, not replacing the people in the call center, but what if Watson was available to help those people in the call center? Already being done. Many times, many insurance companies, retailers that you call the help center, that person has access to Watson. Watson has read all of their records from that call center, all of their product menus, and in real time can help that call center agent. Simple, but very effective in the consumer world. Rethinking things as simple as sports in 2 dimensions. We're working with companies that are working on sensors in helmets and other body protective gear, taking that information and looking at the shock that's being encountered by those athletes and making real-time sense of whether that athlete is in danger or not. At the same time that's happening, Watson is at work with the fans in the stadium, looking at different perspectives of the game and different analysis of the athletes, looking for any changes of behavior. So Watson, again, active in something as simple as sports. Insurance, very complicated field, but again, one that was ripe for us to introduce cognitive computing or Watson in. Today, with a large insurer in the United States, if you go online and start applying for auto insurance, you will be talking to Watson. Watson will be helping you through that application. Watson has read the insurance laws in all 50 states, has read all of their policies, knows your preferences, knows your grouping, your demographics, and helps you through that process. Because it's well known, if you can get through that form, it's more likely that you will buy insurance and stay with that company. And this company that's doing this has seen a dramatic improvement in their sales because, again, the interaction has changed. In oil and gas, I talked about the platforms. More importantly, and this comes very close to what we're trying to do here at the CISL, Oil and gas companies now, as I said, the cost of not knowing where to drill is huge, $200 to $300 million per well, and they only get it right about a third of the time. Tremendous, tremendous waste. And then when they get it right, they don't always pump the oil at the appropriate rates. We are building with Repsol in Europe a cognitive environment, a decision-making environment where they not only are looking at massive amounts of seismic data, but also business data, geopolitical data. Where should they be bidding on oil reserves in the world? An exact analogy to what we're going to be doing here at the CISL. Rethinking healthcare. One of the largest sets of data in the healthcare industry is in medical images. It's probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the health data. But as I said before, in 2011, Watson, in a sense, was blind, could not understand an image. Today, Watson has the ability to understand medical images and work side by side with a radiologist to understand that image. Why is that important? Well, typically a radiologist sits in a dark room all day watching thousands of images come by and has less than a minute to make a diagnosis. Fatigue, bias, what did I see last? Misdiagnosis. Watson can work with that radiologist to improve the diagnosis and hopefully save lives. President Jackson mentioned genomics. Everybody says, well, we've mapped the human genome, it's over. No, 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 no. It's just begun. It's just begun. We have so far mapped very few individuals' human genomes. Fortunately, the cost is coming down, but we hope to be able to now use Watson to make sense of the massive amounts of information, not only as we map our own human genome, but as we look for answers in the pathways that cause mutations in certain kinds of cancers. We have 14 universities we're collaborating with around the United States and in North America to map this knowledge of individual mutations in individual cancers, individual tumors, and individual people to find better therapy for those cancer patients. And one that really excites me, and again, President Jackson spoke about, is education. I think we have a chance to finally fundamentally change the way we educate our children as well as our adult population in the work environment. Because for once, we have the ability to not only present material, but really understand how every individual is learning